"Can I sit here?" asked the single mother. "Only if you have dinner with me," replied the lonely duke. "Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from." The snow had not stopped for miles, and Moira Campbell felt each flake as another reminder of how far she still had to go. She carried her son in her arms as she pushed open the door of the inn. Warmth washed over her in a rush, along with the noise of travelers speaking over one another. Ewan stirred, half asleep, murmuring that he was hungry. She whispered that they would rest soon and guided him toward the first empty space she saw, only to realize there were none. The room was crowded. Boots cluttered the floor, coats dripped melted snow near the hearth, people leaned over their plates as though guarding the last meal they would ever have. Moira scanned the tables again, willing one to free itself. Ewan lifted his head, eyes wide with confusion, and she brushed his hair gently, whispering that everything was all right. Only one table offered any hope. A single man sat alone near the far wall, posture straight, gaze lowered to a plate he didn't seem interested in finishing. He wasn't young, though not old either. Broad shoulders, a quiet air, and something about his stillness made the rest of the room blur around him. A man like that did not invite approach, but she had no choice. She steadied her breathing, adjusted Ewan's blanket, and walked toward him. Her heart pounded with each step. Perhaps he would turn her away. Perhaps he would look at her with that same polite dismissal she had grown used to receiving. She told herself it didn't matter. She simply needed a place to sit. When she reached his table, she cleared her throat softly. The man looked up as though waking from a long sleep. His eyes were grey, calm, and startlingly clear. She felt herself freeze beneath that steady attention. Her voice nearly failed her. "Sir, may we sit here for a moment, just until another table frees?" He studied her, then glanced at the boy in her arms. His expression didn't harden or soften. It simply shifted as if he were adjusting to a new thought he had not expected to have. "You may sit," he said quietly, "but only if you share dinner with me." Moira blinked. She hadn't expected conversation. She hadn't expected a condition either. She tightened her hold on Ewan, who was watching the man with interest. "I don't wish to trouble you," she replied. "We only need a place to rest." "Then rest here," he said, and his voice carried a quiet firmness. "The food is warm, and I find I would prefer company if you don't mind offering it." Ewan tugged gently at her sleeve, whispering that he was hungry. That decided it. Moira lowered herself into the chair opposite the man. Ewan settled beside her, leaning against her shoulder. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. He inclined his head. "My name is Lachlan Fraser." She repeated it in her mind, though it meant nothing to her. A simple name for a man who did not seem simple at all. She was suddenly aware of her half-frozen fingers, of the threadbare shawl she wore, of everything that marked her as someone who did not belong at his table. "Moira Campbell," she said, and prayed he would not ask for more. He didn't. Instead, he gestured toward the innkeeper, who hurried over at once. "Bring the lady and her child a hot meal. And more bread." The innkeeper nodded, eyes wide with a respect Moira didn't understand. She watched the man retreat and felt tension coil beneath her ribs. "You travel alone?" Lachlan asked. It was not an accusation, it was simply a question, yet her pulse quickened anyway. "Only for a short distance," she said. "The roads have been difficult." He seemed to consider her answer. "And your husband?" The question struck like a sudden wind. She forced herself to meet his eyes, hoping her voice would not betray anything. "I lost him," she said, "some time ago." Lachlan's expression shifted again, barely perceptible, but unmistakably human. "I am sorry." "Thank you." Silence settled between them, lighter than she expected. The meals arrived, steam rising into the air. Ewan reached eagerly for the bread, and Lachlan's attention softened as he watched the boy eat with sleepy contentment. Moira took her first bite of hot food in hours. It warmed her throat and eased the tightness in her chest. She found herself relaxing, almost against her will. "You've been on the road long," Lachlan said, not as a question but as an observation. "Long enough," she murmured. He leaned back slightly, studying her with an attentiveness that felt unfamiliar. Her instinct was to retreat, to guard her silence. But something about his calm gaze made her want to explain herself. Before she could speak, he said, "You have the look of someone carrying more worry than luggage." She gave a fragile smile. "It has been a difficult year. For both of us," he said. Ewan lifted his head. "Mother, who is he?" "A kind gentleman," Moira replied before Lachlan could answer. "He is allowing us to share his table." Lachlan watched the exchange quietly, as if measuring something important. "Children speak honestly," he said. "There is comfort in that." Ewan blinked at him. "Are you alone?" The question caught Lachlan off guard. He hesitated. "Yes," he said at last. "I am." Moira felt something in his voice she couldn't name. Not grief, not bitterness. Something slower, deeper, like a weight carried for years without complaint. "If we disturb you, we can leave," she offered gently. "You do not disturb me," he replied. "In truth, your company is welcome." She looked down at her plate, unsure how to respond. It had been so long since anyone had welcomed her presence without expecting something in return. The door to the inn opened suddenly, sending a cold gust across the room. Several men in heavy coats stepped inside, laughing loudly as they shook the snow from their sleeves. Moira barely noticed them until one of the men raised his voice over the noise. "Has anyone seen a young woman traveling with a child? Dark hair, perhaps using another name." Moira froze. The fork slipped from her fingers. Her breath caught painfully in her chest. The room seemed to close in around her, every sound fading into a dull echo. Lachlan looked at her sharply. The shift in her expression told him more than words ever could. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Who is he?" She shook her head. "Not here. Not now." The man near the door repeated the question to a group of travelers. A few shrugged. One pointed vaguely toward the tables. Moira gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. Lachlan rose slowly, with a deliberate calm that commanded attention, without a single raised word. He stepped away from her table and moved toward the path between the other guests, positioning himself so the newcomer would see him first. "What business do you have here?" Lachlan asked, his tone even. The man blinked at him, startled by his presence. "I seek someone. A woman." "Why?" Lachlan pressed. The newcomer hesitated. "She is needed elsewhere." "Needed," Lachlan repeated quietly, as though testing the word. The man's eyes flickered toward Moira's corner. She lowered her head, heart beating too fast. Lachlan stepped further into the man's line of sight, blocking it completely. When he turned back to Moira moments later, his voice was barely audible. "Tell me the truth, Moira Campbell. Are you in danger?" She swallowed hard. Her throat felt too tight to speak. She wasn't allowed to answer. The innkeeper rushed to their table, breathless. "My lady, that man asked if your name is Campbell." Moira looked up, horror widening her eyes. And the innkeeper added, "He said someone from your past has come for you." She tried to stand, but her knees weakened beneath her. Lachlan reached out instinctively, steadying her arm. She felt the strength in his hold, the steadiness she desperately needed. The stranger turned then, scanning the room again. His gaze began to drift toward her corner. He started walking forward, and Moira whispered, barely breathing, "He's coming straight toward me." Lachlan moved before Moira could speak. He rose from his chair with a quiet authority that rippled through the room. Conversation faltered. A few heads turned. Even the stranger slowed his steps when the tall man stepped into his path as naturally as if the floor itself had carried him there. "Good evening," Lachlan said, voice measured. "You seem intent on finding someone." The stranger narrowed his eyes. I am. Then perhaps you will explain whom you seek," Lachlan replied. "These roads are no place for misunderstandings." Moira felt Ewan clutch her sleeve. She hushed him softly, though her own heart beat loud enough to drown every other sound. Lachlan stood steady, offering no hint of the tension he surely sensed behind him. "I'm looking for a young woman," the stranger said. "She's traveling with a child. I was told she took this road. Thought she might have stopped here." Lachlan's posture didn't shift, but the entire inn felt as if it leaned toward him, waiting for his next word. "This inn is full tonight," he said. "Many travelers." "What claim do you have on this woman?" The man hesitated. "It's private business." "Then you will understand if I expect a clearer answer before letting you trouble any guest here," Lachlan replied. The stranger bristled. "And who are you to decide?" The innkeeper stepped forward from behind the counter, voice trembling with respect. "My lord, perhaps—" Lachlan lifted one hand slightly, enough to quiet him. The stranger's eyes widened. "My lord," he repeated, glancing at Lachlan again, as if reassessing the man who stood before him. Lachlan did not acknowledge the title. He kept his gaze steady. "Your purpose, sir," the stranger exhaled sharply. "The woman I seek, she was wronged. She must be told something important. That is all." Moira felt a sudden tremor of doubt. Wronged. Told something. The words blurred together. She pressed a hand to Ewan's back, steadying both of them. Lachlan spoke again, voice calm. "You may speak with the innkeeper, but you will not approach any woman here without permission. Is that understood?" The man swallowed, then nodded stiffly. "Aye, understood." He turned away toward the counter. Only when his back was fully turned did Lachlan step aside. He didn't sit. He didn't relax. He simply returned to Moira's table with composed steps and lowered himself into his chair. Ewan whispered, "Mother, who is he?" Moira shook her head faintly. "A man from... before." Lachlan leaned forward. "Moira Campbell. That man unsettles you. Tell me why." She swallowed, her throat dry. "I can't yet. Not here." His voice softened, though his gaze remained keen. "Then answer me this. Is he a danger to you?" She hesitated. "Not danger. But he knows things that could harm me all the same." Lachlan nodded once, as if that was enough for now. "Eat," he said quietly. "Keep the boy calm. I'll watch him." She managed a small, strained breath. "Thank you." But she couldn't eat. Her hands shook too much. Lachlan noticed. Without speaking, he reached for the pitcher of warm cider, poured a small cup and slid it toward her. "Drink," he said gently. She took it, grateful for something to hold. Across the room, the stranger spoke with the innkeeper in low tones. No one else paid much attention now that Lachlan had settled the matter. The tension lifted for most, except for Moira. Lachlan leaned back slightly. "You're afraid he'll recognize you?" "Yes, but he hasn't yet." "Not yet. And you will tell me more when you can?" She nodded. "Good," Lachlan said. "Until then, I intend to see that no one troubles you." She looked at him then, really looked. He wasn't offering hollow comfort. He meant every word. Something tightened in her chest at the realization. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "No," he said quietly, "but I know fear when I see it, and I know when someone deserves protection." Ewan reached for another piece of bread. Lachlan offered it to him without a second thought. Moira watched the gentle movement, surprised by how natural it seemed. "You're kind," she murmured. "I am practical," he countered. "Kindness is only a consequence." Despite everything, a faint smile touched her lips. The innkeeper approached their table cautiously once more. "My lord," the man, he asked if the woman had dark hair and a child about that age. He's certain she passed this way. Moira felt the blood drain from her face. Lachlan's gaze sharpened. "Did he give a name?" "No, my lord. Only said he must speak with her." Lachlan dismissed the innkeeper with a nod, then turned to Moira. "Tell me what you fear he knows." She looked down at Ewan, then lifted her eyes slowly. "Secrets I hoped would remain buried." Lachlan's jaw tightened slightly. "Then we will bury them deeper still." Before Moira could reply, the stranger finished his conversation and strode back toward the entrance. But instead of leaving, he took a seat near the door facing the room, watching. Moira pulled Ewan closer. Her breath came faster. Lachlan noticed. He lowered his voice again, never removing his gaze from hers. "He won't approach while I'm here. He shouldn't be here at all," she whispered. "Did he harm you once?" "No," she said quickly. "Nothing like that. But his presence means someone else might be searching." Lachlan considered her words. "Then we need to be careful." Ewan tugged at Moira's sleeve again. "Mother, will we go soon?" She kissed his forehead. "Soon, my love. You're safe." Ewan's eyelids drooped, heavy with sleep. Moira tried to shift him onto her lap without drawing attention, but Lachlan stood and offered his arm to steady her. "Let him rest," he said softly. "You've carried him long enough today." She nodded, surprised by how much comfort she took from that simple gesture. Outside, wind battered the shutters. The inn felt smaller, almost fragile. Moira wondered how many more encounters like this she could endure before her resolve finally gave way. Lachlan sat again, hands folded on the table. "Tell me," he said unexpectedly, "where you are headed." She hesitated. "North." To a small village off the main road. Is someone waiting for you there? No. Then why there? Because no one knows me there. Lachlan nodded slowly, as if something was becoming clearer in his mind. A place to disappear, he murmured. Moira's breath caught. She hadn't meant to reveal so much, but he didn't press her. He only said, "If you wish to remain unseen, a crowded inn is hardly a place for it." "I hadn't planned to stop here," she admitted. "But the cold grew too sharp for Ewan. Your son comes first." "That is right." She frowned. His casual certainty made her chest warm in a way she did not expect. The stranger by the door rose suddenly. He walked outside, closing the door behind him. Moira stiffened. "Why is he waiting out there?" Lachlan watched the door thoughtfully. "Because he hopes the woman he seeks will leave the inn eventually, and he means to see her path." She pressed a hand to her throat. "I cannot leave now." "Then you won't," he said. "Not while he waits." She forced herself to breathe evenly. Lachlan lowered his voice. "Moira, if he were to see you, what would he say?" She closed her eyes. "Things that would unravel everything." "Then he will not see you," Lachlan said. "But how—" He leaned forward, face steady, voice firm. "You are under my protection now, do you understand?" She blinked at him. "Under your protection?" He nodded. "As long as you are in this inn, why would you offer that?" "You owe me nothing." "Perhaps not," he said. "But I choose to." Moira looked down to hide the surge of emotion that rose too quickly. No one had chosen to protect her in years. Not without conditions. Not without price. Ewan stirred, mumbling softly. Moira brushed his hair back, whispering reassurance. When she looked up again, Lachlan was watching her with a quiet intensity she didn't know how to meet. "You are a strong woman, Moira Campbell," he said, "but even the strongest should not face certain things alone." She wanted to thank him, but her voice failed. A few moments passed in silence before Lachlan asked, "Do you trust me enough to tell me more?" "Not yet," she whispered. "But I want to." That was enough for him. He nodded. Outside, footsteps crunched in the snow. Moira stared at the door, breath held. The latch shifted. Ewan murmured, "Half asleep." "Mother, who is that man?" Moira didn't answer. She couldn't. Because at that moment, the door swung open again, and the stranger stepped inside with eyes fixed directly on her. "He has seen me." Lachlan rose before the stranger could take another step. The movement was quiet but unmistakable, cutting across the room like a drawn curtain. Several guests looked up, sensing that something significant was unfolding. Though no one moved to interfere, the stranger hesitated, caught between his intention and the imposing presence blocking his path. "You seem to have found what you were looking for," Lachlan said, his voice even but edged with authority. The stranger lifted his chin. "I recognized her. Took me a moment, but I did." "Then you will address me first," Lachlan replied, "and you will keep your distance until I grant otherwise." The stranger frowned. "I don't mean harm. I just need a word with her. A word you have not earned," Lachlan said calmly. "And until she permits it, you will not have it." Moira stood slowly, careful not to wake Ewan fully. She felt every eye in the room on her. Every breath she drew tasted of dread. The stranger looked older than she remembered, worn by travel, thinner, with lines etched by cold and worry. But the unease he stirred in her had not changed. His voice dropped. "Mistress Campbell, I must speak with you." Moira clung to the back of the chair. "Why are you here?" "Because someone sent me," he said. "Someone who has sought you for too long." Lachlan stepped slightly forward, blocking her view. "That is enough. You will not say more without her consent." The stranger's frustration flickered. "My lord, I mean no disrespect, but this is not your concern." "It is now," Lachlan replied. Moira touched Lachlan's sleeve. "Let him speak. Only a little." Lachlan's jaw tightened, but he nodded once and shifted to stand beside her instead of before her. The stranger addressed her with gentler words than she expected. "I served your family once. You remember me, don't you? Ian Mackay." Moira searched his features and found the memory beneath the years. "You were the steward's son." "Aye," Ian said. "I was dismissed when everything went wrong. But I never forgot what I saw, nor what I should have said sooner." Lachlan glanced at Moira, reading her growing fear. He lowered his voice. "If this becomes too much, tell me." She nodded, then looked at Ian again. "Why are you following me?" Ian shook his head. I'm not following you. I'm searching for you. Your father wished to find you before matters got worse. Moira stiffened. My father? He swore never to speak to me again. He regrets that, Ian said. He regrets much. He sent me to bring you word, to warn you, and to beg your forgiveness. The room blurred at the edges. She gripped the chair harder. Forgiveness? Aye, Ian said. He knows the truth now. He knows your child is innocent of all that was said. Moira felt her knees weaken. Lachlan steadied her without drawing attention. She took one breath, then another. Is that all? She asked. No, Ian said. Your father wants you home. Moira shook her head immediately. That is impossible. Lachlan's voice cut through the tension. Enough for tonight. Whatever your message is, it can wait until morning. The lady is tired and your presence distresses her. Ian exhaled. I didn't come to frighten her. Then step back, Lachlan replied. Ian hesitated, but stepped back 2 paces. He looked at Moira with something like guilt. I'll wait outside until dawn. I won't leave until I know you've heard everything. Moira's voice faltered. Please, don't. I have to, Ian replied softly. Your father asked it of me, and I owe you both more than silence. He left then, closing the door gently behind him. The inn exhaled as one. Conversations resumed. Laughter rose again, but Moira heard none of it. Lachlan turned to her. You should sit. She allowed him to guide her back into the chair. Ewan stirred, confused, but she soothed him until he settled again against her side. Lachlan lowered himself into his seat, watching her carefully. Tell me what this means. She shook her head. I can't. Not yet. It's too tangled, too painful. He accepted this with a quiet nod. Then speak of what you can. Moira closed her eyes for a moment. Ian must not know everything. Ewan's truth. That must remain only ours. Lachlan's voice softened. You fear your father learning it. I fear the consequences, she whispered. Not from harm, from disgrace, from the ruin it would bring to Ewan. Lachlan leaned slightly closer, lowering his tone. Secrets survive when guarded, and you are not guarding yours alone anymore. Her breath caught. You barely know me. He met her gaze steadily. I know what I saw tonight. A woman protecting her child with every ounce of strength she has. That is not a stranger to me. She swallowed hard. I never meant to bring trouble to anyone here. You brought no trouble, he said. Only truth. The trouble arrived on its own legs. Moira gave a faint, fragile laugh. Lachlan continued. Tell me, does Ian speak truthfully? Were you wronged? Moira hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes. By whom? She looked down at her hands. By someone I trusted. Someone who claimed he loved me. Someone who disappeared the moment he learned I carried a child. Lachlan's expression hardened, though he kept his voice gentle. And your father believed that man. He believed the rumors, the ones that named another man as the father instead of the one who fled. Lachlan's fingers curled slightly on the table. And you suffered for his mistake. She didn't answer, but her silence spoke enough. Ewan breathed softly against her arm. She brushed a hand across his cheek, as if reminding herself he was safe. Lachlan watched the gesture with a quiet tenderness. He wanted to ask more, but refused to push her. Instead he said, whatever truth Ian carries, it changes nothing of your worth. Moira looked at him sharply. He spoke so simply, so calmly, as if her darkest fears were merely shadows that could be swept aside. You don't understand, she whispered. If my father seeks me, it means others in the household know. It means whispers are growing again. Lachlan shook his head. Let them whisper. Words cannot harm you here, but they can harm Ewan. Not while I draw breath, Lachlan said, and he said it with such clarity that it stunned her. Moira's lips parted, then closed again. No one had ever spoken such a promise to her. Outside, the wind howled again. A few flakes drifted through a crack beneath the door. Moira watched them melt on the floor, wishing her fears could disappear so easily. Lachlan leaned forward. You must rest. Your mind cannot bear the weight of this night alone. I can't rest, she murmured. Not while he waits outside. Then I will keep watch, Lachlan said, and he will not trouble you without going through me first. She looked up. But why? Why would you do this? Lachlan's expression did not waver, because I understand loss and fear and the slow, painful work of rebuilding trust. You need shelter. I can offer it. Moira felt a rush of emotion she wasn't prepared for. Ewan shifted again, waking just enough to whisper, "Mother, is everything all right?" She kissed his forehead. "Yes, my love. Everything will be well." Lachlan stood. "I will speak with the innkeeper. Make arrangements for a chamber for you and the boy." Moira's eyes widened. "We have little money." "I did not ask for payment," he said, "only for your acceptance." She stared at him, unable to speak. He bowed his head slightly. "I will return." As he walked toward the counter, Moira felt her breath steady a little. Not because the trouble had faded, but because she was no longer alone in facing it. She held Ewan close, whispering that they would be safe tonight. The sound of Lachlan's steps, the quiet firmness of his voice, the calm assurance he carried, all of it wove around her like a fragile shield. The innkeeper nodded deeply to Lachlan, surprised but eager, and hurried to prepare a room. Moira watched their exchange, the way the other guests treated Lachlan with subtle deference. She realized something she should have noticed earlier. She whispered, almost to herself, "There is more to him than he lets on." Lachlan returned to her side. "The chamber is being prepared. You may go when you are ready." Moira gathered Ewan carefully. "Thank you." He nodded, but did not step away. "One more thing, Moira Campbell. When dawn comes, Ian will wait for your answer. And you must decide whether to face him or flee." She tightened her hold on her son. "I don't know what to choose." Lachlan looked at her steadily, with a depth that made her breath falter. "Then let me help you decide." She blinked. "How?" "By hearing the full truth from your own lips." Moira froze, trembling. "Because," Lachlan continued quietly, "I believe there is much you have not yet told me." Moira's voice broke. There is more than you know." "Then speak it, Moira. Tell me everything." She opened her mouth, then hesitated, fear rising again. Lachlan stepped closer, voice low, steady, certain. "You are safe with me." Moira drew in a shaking breath. "There is one last truth," she whispered, gripping Ewan tightly. "The most dangerous one of all." Moira's confession trembled on her lips, but she could not force the words out. Ewan shifted sleepily against her shoulder, and the small weight of him reminded her why she dared not speak so easily. The truth she carried was not simple. It was not safe, and once spoken it could never be taken back. Lachlan saw her struggle and lowered his voice to a murmur meant only for her. "Not tonight," he said gently. "You are weary, and fear clouds what you wish to say. Rest first, then decide if you trust me with it." She nodded, grateful for the reprieve. He offered his arm as she rose, and though she hesitated, she accepted it. His strength steadied her steps. The room felt warmer with him beside her, as if his presence alone pushed back the sharp edges of her fear. Up the narrow staircase, the innkeeper led them to a small chamber lit by a single candle. The bed was humble, but clean. Ewan stirred awake long enough to look around, confused by the new place, but Moira soothed him until he settled again beneath the covers. The innkeeper bowed to Lachlan. "My lord, if you require anything, only quiet," Lachlan said. "And a key." The innkeeper nodded quickly and handed him one before retreating. Moira watched Lachlan lock the door from the inside. Her breath caught at the soft click of the bolt. Something fierce and startlingly tender flashed in her chest. He had done this not to bind her, but to shield her. "You will sleep here," Lachlan said. "No one will disturb you." "And you?" she asked. "I will remain outside. The hallway is narrow." He paused. "Anyone attempting to reach this door would have to pass through me first." Moira felt a rush of gratitude, so sharp it almost hurt. No one had stood between her and the world in years. "Thank you," she whispered. He inclined his head. "Rest, Moira. The dawn will bring its own trials." She watched him step out and close the door behind him. For a moment she stood silently, listening. She heard the quiet shift of his boots as he settled against the wall just beyond the threshold. A silent guardian. She pressed her palm lightly to the door, part of her wishing she had the courage to open it and speak the words she had held back. Instead, she turned to the bed, gathered Ewan in her arms, and let the exhaustion of the day pull her into a restless sleep. She woke some time later to the faint creak of footsteps outside, not Lachlan's, softer, hesitant. She sat up sharply. Ewan stirred, but remained asleep. Moira slipped from the bed and pressed her ear to the door. Lachlan's voice came through in a low murmur. "This hallway is not a place for wandering at night," a second voice answered, barely above a whisper. "My lord, forgive me. I only wished to speak without the lady's fear clouding her thoughts." Moira recognized Ian's tone. Cold dread rushed through her. Lachlan replied, "And you believe cornering her chamber in the middle of the night would ease her fear?" "No," Ian admitted, "but the message I carry cannot wait long. Her father grows weaker by the week. He wishes to see her before it is too late." Moira felt her knees weaken. Memories of her father, stern, unyielding, disappointed, flickered painfully. She backed away from the door and pressed a hand to her mouth. Lachlan's tone hardened. "You speak as though she owes him something after all he allowed to happen to her." Ian sighed. "I know his faults, my lord. I saw them plainly, yet he is still her father. There are matters she deserves to hear from him directly, matters that could free her from the lies that wounded her." Moira gripped the edge of the bed, her breath trembling. Lies. The word struck her harder than she expected. So much of her life had been shaped by them. Lachlan answered, "And what of the man who wronged her? Is he also seeking forgiveness?" Ian hesitated. "I cannot say." Lachlan's voice tightened. "Then your message is incomplete, and your presence remains unwelcome tonight." Ian exhaled, then said, "I will wait outside the inn until morning. She may decide then whether to see me." Moira heard the soft retreat of his footsteps, followed by the muted slam of the downstairs door. Silence returned. After several moments, Lachlan knocked softly. "Moira, are you awake?" She opened the door only a crack. His face appeared in the dim light, calm but attentive. "I'm sorry you heard that," he said. "He should not have approached." "I'm glad he did not speak further," she whispered. Lachlan lowered his voice. "If you wish it, I will send him away at dawn. He will not trouble you again." Moira looked at him, torn between the instinct to flee and the need to understand the message Ian carried. "I don't know what I wish yet." "Then decide in the morning," he said. "Tonight you must rest." She nodded. "Thank you." Truly. He bowed his head and returned to his place near the door. Moira closed it again and leaned against the wood. Her heart beat fiercely, but not with fear alone. Something deeper, warmer had begun to grow in her, a feeling she dared not name yet. She returned to bed and slept again, though uneasily. Each time she woke, the faint shadow of Lachlan's shape outside the door reassured her more than she expected. Morning came as a pale grey light seeping through the shutters. Ewan yawned beside her, rubbing his eyes. "Mother, where are we?" "Safe," she whispered, "for now." She dressed quickly and helped Ewan do the same. When she unlocked the door, Lachlan was already standing, composed despite the long hours of wakefulness. "Good morning," he said. "You didn't sleep," she murmured. "I've slept less for far less reason." Ewan tugged at her skirts. "Mother, I'm hungry." "We'll eat downstairs," she told him. Lachlan nodded. "I'll see that the stranger keeps his distance while you decide what must be done." Moira hesitated. "I don't wish for confrontation." "Then you shall have none," he said. "Not unless you choose it." They descended the stairs together. The inn was quieter in the morning, with only a handful of travellers lingering over bread and warm porridge. The fire crackled softly. Nothing about the scene suggested danger, until Moira saw Ian through the window. He stood outside in the snow, hands clasped before him, staring at the inn door with a patience carved from desperation. He looked colder, older, smaller than he had in the dark. Lachlan followed her gaze. "Wait here," he said, then stepped outside. Moira watched through the glass. She couldn't hear their words, but she saw the tension in Ian's shoulders and the way Lachlan held himself with quiet command. But then something shifted. Ian pointed toward the road. His face tightened. He said something that made Lachlan's expression sharpen. Moira felt dread twist again. Lachlan returned quickly, expression controlled but edged with concern. "Moira, there is something you must hear. Ian says—" He paused, glancing at Ewan, then lowered his voice. "Ian says someone else is searching for you as well. Someone who knew you before the scandal. Someone determined. Moira's breath left her in a rush. Who? Ian would not give the name, Lachlan said. He only said this person will reach this road within a day. Her hand trembled. She pressed it to her chest. Ewan stared between them, confused. Mother, Moira forced a smile. It's all right, sweetheart. But inside, terror surged. If another person from her past was coming, then the fragile safety she had found here would shatter. Lachlan reached for her arm, steadying her again. Look at me. You are not alone in this. Whatever truth follows, you will not face it unshielded. She met his gaze, and something in his quiet strength nearly undid her. She opened her mouth to speak, to ask what she should do, but she never finished the question. The inn door opened. Ian stepped inside, snow melting in his hair. His gaze locked onto Moira, filled with urgency. He said, "The person searching for you, they've been sighted. They're close." Moira's heart dropped. And then Ian added, "They're coming here." Moira froze, breath gone. She whispered, "He's walking straight toward me." Moira's breath turned thin, almost weightless, as Ian's warning settled over the room. The inn seemed to shrink around her, every noise too sharp, every voice too loud. Ewan pressed his face into her skirts, sensing the tension even if he didn't understand it. Lachlan stepped between her and the doorway without hesitation, his posture composed, his gaze fixed on the inn's entrance, as though he could already see the approaching figure. "You will not face this alone," he said, not looking back at her. Moira swallowed hard. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust the calm steadiness in his voice. But the shadow of her past marched closer with each passing minute, and she feared the truth would break everything she had begun to feel here. Ian moved toward the window, wiping condensation with his sleeve. There, down the road. Moira forced herself to look. A solitary figure approached through the falling snow, wrapped in a dark coat, head lowered, step deliberate, not running, not hiding, knowing exactly where to go. Lachlan's jaw tightened. He turned slightly toward Ian. "Who is that man? Give me a name." Ian shook his head helplessly. "I only know he worked for the household years ago, before Moira was sent away." Moira felt the room tilt. She gripped the edge of the nearest table. That could be many men. Too many. Lachlan faced her then, his voice calm but commanding. "Stay behind me, keep the boy close. Whatever happens, I will speak first." Moira held Ewan to her side. Her pulse beat in her throat, too fast, too loud. The inn's door swung open with a sharp gust of wind. Snow swept inside, clinging to boots and floor. The stranger stepped through the threshold, pulling back his hood. Moira gasped before she could stop herself. She knew this man. Not well, not closely, but enough to recognize him, enough to feel dread. It was Calder Boyd, a former footman in her father's house. He had always spoken too boldly, always lingered too long in the corners where he wasn't needed, and he had known the man who abandoned her. They had been friends, laughing, drinking, whispering in halls where they thought no one watched. Calder's gaze swept the inn. He didn't appear dangerous, only determined, maybe desperate. But his presence still made Moira's stomach twist. Calder spotted Ian first. His expression tightened with irritation. "You left me waiting long enough. What took you so—" His eyes moved past Ian, landed on Moira, and froze. Moira Campbell. Finally. Lachlan stepped forward instantly. "Sir, you will lower your voice, and you will speak no name unless invited." Calder's gaze shifted upward, registering Lachlan fully for the first time. His mouth twitched, as though he might smile, but the unease beneath it betrayed him. "And you are?" "Lachlan Fraser, Duke of Strathmore," he replied, calm as winter frost. "And you have entered this establishment with an intention that concerns me." A ripple passed through the inn. Calder blinked. "A duke?" He swallowed, reassessing his position. "Forgive me, Your Grace, I did not expect—" "You did not expect anyone to stand in your way," Lachlan finished. "And yet here I am. Now state your purpose." Calder looked at Moira again. She flinched. He straightened his shoulders and said, "I carry a message, one she needs to hear. One about the man who—" He paused, lowering his tone. "The man who disappeared. The one she believed lost to her." Moira felt the floor fall from beneath her feet. Not his name. "Not here. Please, not in front of Ewan." Lachlan moved so swiftly she barely saw it. He stepped closer to Calder, just enough to reclaim control of the moment without appearing threatening. "If you speak another word that causes her distress, you will leave this inn immediately," Lachlan said. Calder bristled. "Your Grace, I mean no harm, but I was sent with news she has sought for years." Moira shook her head. "I don't want your news." "You may not want it," Calder said, "but you can't refuse to hear it, not now, not when the truth finally surfaced." Lachlan's voice sharpened. "Truth?" Calder hesitated, then nodded. "Aye, truth about the child." Moira's heart stopped. Ewan looked up, confused, sensing panic in her breath. She held him closer. "No, no, Calder. Don't you dare." Calder raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you, I swear it. But you must know what—" Lachlan cut in sharply. "You will not speak in riddles, nor will you upset this woman or her son with careless words. If you have something to say, you will say it to me first." Calder frowned. "With respect, Your Grace, this is her matter, not yours. It became my matter the moment you frightened her child," Lachlan said quietly. Moira's breath caught. Calder looked between them, torn between fear and frustration. Ian stepped forward. "Calder, listen to him. This isn't the place for—" Calder snapped. "Enough, Ian. I have walked through snow for 3 days. I have carried a letter sealed with a name no one thought they'd see again. I will not be turned away because a duke wishes to play protector." Lachlan did not move, but the room felt colder. "You presume much, sir, but you will say your piece to me alone. If your message is harmless, you lose nothing by it." Calder huffed, staring at Moira again. His voice softened. "Mistress Campbell, please, I only wish to help you. I came because someone finally spoke the truth. The man you loved, he didn't abandon you the way you believe." Moira's breath shattered. She gripped the table with both hands. Ewan whimpered, frightened by her trembling. Lachlan placed one steady hand on her shoulder. "Look at me," he murmured. "Breathe. You are safe." Calder's voice rose. He was kept away. Lied to. He never knew of the child. Moira's vision blurred. That was impossible. That was cruel. That was— Lachlan stepped between them again, blocking Calder entirely. "Enough. Outside. Now." Calder blinked. "Why?" "Because you have spoken too much already," Lachlan said, "and you will say nothing further until I decide it will not harm her." Calder looked like he might argue, but one look at Lachlan's expression silenced him. He turned toward the door with a frustrated breath, snow still clinging to his boots. Lachlan addressed Ian. "Go with him. Keep him out of this room until I call for you." Ian nodded quickly and followed Calder outside. When the door closed, Moira sagged into the nearest chair. Her breath shook. Her hands trembled violently. "Mother!" Ewan whispered. She pulled him onto her lap and held him tight. "I'm here, my love. I'm here." Lachlan knelt before her. "Moira, look at me." She lifted her eyes, tears threatening. He touched her hand lightly, not enough to overstep, only enough to anchor her. "You are not alone in this moment. Whatever that man carried, whatever words he came to deliver, they will not harm you unless you allow them to." She shook her head weakly. "He spoke of Ewan, of his father." Lachlan's voice softened. "You don't know what he meant yet. He said he never abandoned me." "Then let us hear the truth in full," Lachlan said, "but only when you are ready, not while your child is frightened, not while your heart is breaking." Moira pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting a sob. She couldn't let Ewan see her fall apart. Lachlan rose slowly. "Come with me." "Where?" she whispered. "To the private room we used earlier. You and Ewan can sit by the fire. No one will disturb you." She hesitated. "What about Calder?" "I will speak with him alone," Lachlan said. "And when I return, you will hear only what you choose to hear." Moira felt torn between dread and gratitude. She nodded, her voice too fragile to trust. Lachlan guided her gently upstairs, helped her settle Ewan on a cushioned chair, and placed her near the small fire that had warmed them the night before. He paused near the door. "I will return soon. Do not fear what waits downstairs. Nothing reaches you without passing through me first." She whispered, "Thank you for everything." Lachlan's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. Then he stepped into the hall and closed the door behind him. Moira held Ewan close and waited, heart racing, fearing what truth Calder might spill into Lachlan's ears. Minutes passed, Voices drifted faintly from below, tense, urgent, too muffled to understand. Then footsteps. Not Calder's, not Ian's, Lachlan's. He appeared in the doorway, his face unreadable. He stepped inside, quiet as snowfall, and stood before her. His voice was calm, controlled, but it carried the weight of something shaken. "Moira, there is something you must hear. It concerns the man you once loved." Her heart twisted painfully. Lachlan exhaled, steady but troubled. "Calder claims that man never abandoned you of his own choice." She stared at him, unable to breathe. And then Lachlan added, "He believes that man is on his way here, searching for you still." Moira did not speak at first. She could not. The fire crackled behind her, throwing shifting light against the walls, but all she saw was darkness closing around her chest. Lachlan stood still, giving her space, though concern shadowed his features. "Searching for me," she whispered at last. "After all this time?" Lachlan nodded once. "That is what Calder believes. He claims the man only learned the truth recently." Moira shook her head. "It doesn't make sense." He left. He knew. He made his choice. Lachlan crouched near her, close enough to speak softly, yet far enough not to crowd her. "Moira, you must consider that you were not told the full story. My father would never have hidden that from me." "Would he not?" Lachlan asked gently. Her breath caught. She looked down, fingers trembling on Ewan's blanket. Memories rose like cold waves. Her father's anger, his silence, his swift decision to remove her from their home once rumors spread. She had never questioned the completeness of that judgment. Until now. Lachlan continued. "Calder believes the man was sent away forcibly, that he was told you had changed your mind, that you no longer wanted him." "No," she whispered. "No, I would have never—" Her voice broke. Lachlan waited patiently. "I wrote to him," she said, pressing a hand to her forehead. "I wrote so many letters, begging for an answer. I believed he received them. And when he didn't reply, I accepted it." "Perhaps he never saw them," Lachlan murmured. Moira felt the world tilt. Ewan stirred in her arms, and she held him to her chest as though anchoring herself. "Why would my father do such a thing?" Lachlan hesitated. "Moira, grief does strange things to a household. Pride does worse. Your father may have believed he was protecting you, or protecting himself." Moira pressed her lips together. She didn't want to think ill of the man who raised her, yet the pieces were falling into place in a way she had never expected. Lachlan's voice softened further. "Whatever truth comes, it does not change who you are, or who your son is." Ewan rubbed his eyes. "Mother, are we leaving?" Moira drew him close. "Not yet, sweetheart." Lachlan rose. "I will send Ian back inside. You may speak to him if you choose, or not at all. I don't know what I want," Moira admitted. "Then wait until you do," he said. "There is no urgency great enough to force your hand." A soft knock sounded at the door. Lachlan opened it only slightly. Ian stood outside, hat in hand, his face pale from cold and worry. "Is it safe to speak?" Ian asked. "For now," Lachlan replied. "Enter quietly." Ian stepped in and immediately bowed his head. "Mistress Campbell, I'm sorry, I should have spoken years ago. I should never have let your father's house silence me." Moira kept her voice steady. "Tell me everything, Ian. Quickly, before I change my mind." Ian swallowed, clasping his hands together. "After the scandal broke, after you were sent away, the man you loved came to the estate. He demanded to see you, but your father barred him. He was told you no longer wished to marry him, that you wanted no further contact." Moira felt her heart twist. "That cannot be true." "It is," Ian said. "I heard the conversation myself. Your father believed the match beneath you, that the man's position would bring disgrace. He wanted to avoid more gossip." Lachlan's expression tightened, though he said nothing. Moira shook her head, voice trembling. "And what of the child? Did he know of the child?" Ian hesitated. "At first, no. Your father kept that hidden too, but recently, someone revealed it. A former maid. She told him everything." Moira's breath faltered. "Everything?" Ian nodded slowly. "Yes, mistress. And now he searches for you." Lachlan stepped forward, voice calm but edged with warning. "And what does he intend?" Ian shook his head. "I don't know, Your Grace. Only that he wants to see her, to speak with her. He believes he has been wronged. And that she was wronged too." Moira pressed a hand to her mouth. A wave of emotion rose. Confusion, anger, something close to grief. "I cannot face him," she whispered. "Not after all this time, not after what I went through alone." Lachlan knelt beside her again. "Then you will not. You owe him nothing, Moira." Ian shifted uneasily. "But if he comes all this way—" Moira cut in sharply. "Enough. I will not see him. I cannot. He made his choice then, whether he knew everything or not. My life is built without him now." Ewan leaned against her, half asleep. Lachlan gave a single nod. "Her decision is made." But Ian looked torn. "Your father wished for her forgiveness, for her return." Moira's voice cracked. "My father cast me out. Forgiveness cannot be demanded. It must be earned." Ian lowered his eyes. "I understand." The room grew quiet, except for the soft crackle of the fire. Moira drew a slow breath. "What does he want now, Ian? This man who abandoned me?" Ian swallowed. "To make things right, I believe. And to see his son." Moira shut her eyes. "No, absolutely not." Ewan blinked up at her. "Mother? Who is he?" She held him tightly. "No one you need to know, my darling." Lachlan stood and addressed Ian firmly. "You have delivered your message. Now leave the lady to her peace. She will decide her own future, without anyone's pressure." Ian hesitated once more. "Your Grace, there is more—" Moira lifted her head sharply. "No, I won't hear it." Ian bowed to her, defeated. "As you wish." He turned toward the door, then paused. "If he arrives here and you refuse to see him, will you at least allow me to speak in your stead?" Lachlan answered before Moira could. "We shall see. For now, go." Ian nodded and slipped from the room. When the door closed, Moira felt her composure crumble. She buried her face in her hands, trembling. Lachlan sat on the edge of the bed. "Moira," she shook her head fiercely. "I can't face him. I can't. He left me to bear the shame alone, to raise our child without a name, to face the cold and the whispers and the pain. Even if it was a lie, even if he didn't know, he wasn't there. And I cannot let him walk back into my life now." Lachlan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he spoke softly. "It is your right to refuse him, and I will uphold that right." Moira lifted her gaze to him, eyes shimmering. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you should never face your past alone," he said. Ewan shifted restlessly. "Mother, I'm hungry." The fragile moment broke. Moira kissed his forehead and smoothed his hair. "I know, sweetheart. We'll go downstairs soon." Lachlan rose. "I will have breakfast brought here instead. You need quiet, rest." She nodded gratefully. He left briefly to speak with the innkeeper, then returned with warm bowls of porridge and bread. Moira ate slowly, grateful for the normalcy. Lachlan waited near the door, arms crossed lightly, watching over her and Ewan with a quiet vigilance that made her chest ache. When the meal was finished, he approached her again. "Moira, there is something else," Ian said, "something I did not tell you earlier." She stiffened. "What?" Lachlan looked at her with steady calm. "Ian believes the man searching for you is closer than you think, that he never stopped hoping to find you." Moira stared at him, breath caught. Lachlan added, "And he believes that man may arrive here before nightfall." She gripped the blanket around Ewan. Lachlan stepped closer, voice low. "Moira, you must trust me with the full truth before he arrives. I cannot protect you properly unless I know all you fear." Moira's pulse pounded in her throat. The room spun slightly. And then she whispered, barely audible, "There is still one thing you don't know, Lachlan. One truth that would change everything." He leaned forward. "Tell me." She trembled from head to toe. "Ewan is not his son." Lachlan froze. Moira's breath shattered, and before he could answer, a sharp knock sounded downstairs. Urgent, determined, unmistakably deliberate. Moira grabbed Lachlan's arm. "He's arrived." The knock echoed through the inn a second time, slow, firm, patient, as if the visitor knew Moira would hear it wherever she hid. She clutched Ewan so tightly he whimpered. Lachlan placed a steady hand on her shoulder, and though his voice remained calm, she could feel the tension beneath it. Moira, listen to me. Stay in this room. Do not open the door for anyone but me. Her pulse raced. What if he forces his way upstairs? He will not. Not while I stand between him and you. She wanted to believe him, truly. But the ghost of her past, knocking at the inn door, was something she had never prepared herself to confront. Ewan pressed his face against her neck, sensing the fear in her bones. Lachlan knelt so he was level with the child. "Cowan, do you remember what I told you last night? That no harm will come to you while I am here?" Ewan nodded, uncertain. "Then hold your mother's hand and stay close to her. I will return soon." He rose, reached for the key on the inside of the door, and locked Moira and Ewan safely in. She pressed her palm against the wood just as he drew away. "Lachlan, please be careful. Not for my sake, for Ewan's." His voice softened. "For both of you." Then he left. Moira held her son, every breath shallow. She could hear footsteps moving downstairs. Lachlan's steady tread, the creak of the floorboards, the muted murmur of curious guests. A chair scraped. Someone cleared their throat. And then a voice, deep, strained, familiar in a way she didn't want to believe. "Where is she?" Moira froze. The sound speared straight through her. Ewan clung to her wrist. "Who is it?" he whispered. She shook her head, unable to speak. She bent low, whispering to him with shaking breath. "You stay with me. No matter what happens." She strained to hear the conversation below. Lachlan spoke first, calm and commanding. "You enter this inn with urgency, sir, but you will explain yourself before stepping further." The visitor exhaled sharply. "I was told she is here. I've searched every village on this road. I will not leave without speaking to her." Moira pressed her forehead to the door, trembling. She could hear the exhaustion in the man's voice, and the frustration, and beneath both, something else, something she couldn't afford to name. Lachlan answered, "Her presence here is not your concern unless she wishes to make it so." "You don't understand," the man insisted. "I have travelled too far to be turned away by a stranger. You stand before Lachlan Fraser, Duke of Strathmore." Ian's voice cut in nervously. "He is no mere stranger." A long silence followed. When the visitor spoke again, it was with caution. "Your Grace, my apologies. But I must find her. I've been lied to for years. Everything I thought was true was false. I will not return until I see her myself." Lachlan replied, "She does not wish to see you." Moira's breath caught. The words hit the room like cold air. A shift in the man's tone followed. Not angry, not bewildered, just wounded. She said that?" "No," Lachlan answered. "She has not spoken at all because she is afraid." Moira shut her eyes. The man exhaled shakily. "I swear, I mean her no harm." "Then speak your name," Lachlan said. Silence hung in the inn for a heartbeat. Then came the name she dreaded and expected in equal measure. Fergus Grant. Moira's hand flew to her mouth. Ewan jumped at the small cry she couldn't contain. "Mother, who is—" She shook her head quickly. "Hush, sweetheart." Downstairs the silence stretched. Lachlan was the first to break it. "You are the man who courted Moira Campbell many years ago." "Yes," Fergus replied, "and the man who should have married her." "Should have?" Lachlan asked. Fergus's voice strained with emotion. "I went to ask for her hand. Her father told me she refused me. He said she wished me gone, that she'd changed her mind." Moira turned her face away. Hearing the words out loud felt like reopening an old wound. Lachlan said quietly, "She wrote to you." Fergus sounded stunned. "Letters?" "I never received a single one." "She sent many," Lachlan continued. Fergus stepped closer. Moira could hear his boots touch the floorboards beneath her. "Then everything I knew was a lie." Ian whispered, "I told you, Fergus, your anger was misguided." Fergus answered sharply, "Misguided. I believed she cast me aside. I believed she never wanted a life with me. I left the country because I thought my presence shamed her further." Lachlan interrupted before Fergus could say more. "And now? Now?" Fergus's voice softened. "Now I know she bore her burden alone, and I will not let her believe I abandoned her. Not when the truth was stolen from both of us." Moira clenched her jaw. She whispered to herself, barely hearing her own voice, "You cannot change what has passed. The floorboard outside her room creaked, not downstairs, right outside her door. She held her breath. Ewan tensed beside her. Then Lachlan's voice came, closer than she expected. Moira opened the door. Her heartbeat stumbled. She hesitated. "Mother, is it safe?" Ewan whispered. She pressed a kiss to his forehead. "If it is Lachlan, yes." But she did not open the door immediately. Not until she heard the same quiet steadiness she had come to trust. "Moira, it is me. Open the door." She turned the key slowly. Lachlan stepped inside and closed the door behind him. His expression carried both intensity and restraint. "You heard?" he said softly. She nodded, unable to speak. Lachlan continued. "Fergus is downstairs. He is tired, weak, but determined. His reason for coming is not harmful. He is not here to force himself into your life, only to understand what happened." Moira gripped the edge of the bed. "I cannot face him." "You do not have to," Lachlan assured her, "not unless you wish it. But I needed to hear your truth before speaking to him again." She drew a shaky breath. "You already know the truth. Fergus is not Ewan's father. And that truth," Lachlan said, "seems to be the only thing Fergus does not know." Moira felt heat rise to her face. The shame, the confusion, the memory of what had come after Fergus left, the mistake, the man who had taken advantage of her heartbreak, then vanished without a trace. Lachlan spoke again, his voice gentle. "There is no disgrace in what you endured. You owe Fergus no explanation." Moira shook her head. "But if he sees Ewan—" "He will not unless you choose to let him," Lachlan said firmly. She looked at him, her eyes shining with fear. "What should I do?" He approached her slowly, as if not to frighten her. She felt Ewan lean into her for comfort. "You do not owe Fergus anything," Lachlan said. "Not forgiveness, not reunion, not truth. He came here seeking answers, but he has no right to demand them." Moira swallowed, but the look in his voice, he sounded so wounded. Lachlan held her gaze steadily. "His pain does not erase yours, and it is not your duty to soothe it." Her lips trembled. Lachlan knelt again in front of her. "Tell me what you want, Moira. Not what you fear, not what you owe, what you want." She squeezed Ewan's hand. "I want peace, I want safety for my son, and I want to close the chapter of my past that nearly broke me." Lachlan nodded slowly. "Then I will send Fergus away." Moira gasped. "You can't—" "I can," Lachlan said quietly, "and I will, because your wishes matter more than any man's regrets." She felt her throat tighten. But he came so far, and he believes—" Lachlan interrupted gently. "He believes the past can be undone, but it cannot. And you are not the young woman he left behind. You are stronger now, wiser, and you carry no debt to him." Moira blinked, stunned by the warmth and firmness in his voice. Lachlan rose. "If you wish, I will tell him you have no desire to revisit what once was. He will accept my word. I will see to it." Moira hesitated. "Would you speak on my behalf?" "I would do far more than that," he said softly. Her breath hitched. Lachlan turned toward the door. "Rest. Hold Ewan close. I will settle this." But before he could leave, Moira reached out and caught his sleeve. "Lachlan—" He turned back. "Please don't let him see me. Not even from a distance." He nodded once. "He will not come near you." Moira drew a steadying breath. "Thank you." Lachlan lingered for a heartbeat more, enough for her to see a depth of feeling in his eyes she had not noticed before. Then he left the room, closing the door behind him. Moira sank onto the bed, holding Ewan. She whispered promises to him, reassuring him even as her own heart raced. Downstairs she heard Lachlan's voice, firm, controlled, protective. She couldn't make out the words, only the tone of command. Fergus answered him, desperate but quieter than before. Then footsteps, the door opening, the cold rush of wind, Fergus leaving. Moira exhaled in a shudder, but the relief lasted only a moment, because then came new footsteps, fast, urgent, running up the stairs. A knock fell against her door. It was Lachlan, but his voice was not calm this time. "Moira, open the door. There is something you must hear now." She froze, and Lachlan said, "His departure is not the end. Another message has arrived, meant only for you." Moira rushed to the door before her thoughts could scatter into panic. She unlocked it with trembling fingers and stepped back as Lachlan entered. His expression was composed, but something in his eyes carried urgency. "What message?" she asked, breath uneven. Lachlan closed the door behind him and lowered his voice. Ian returned after escorting Fergus partway down the road. On his way back, he was stopped by a rider, someone who knew your name. He gave Ian a letter and instructions, for you alone. Moira felt the ground tilt beneath her. A letter from whom? Lachlan shook his head. Ian doesn't know. The rider would not say. He only demanded Ian give it to you at once, and that I be present when you read it. Ewan clung to Moira's skirt, confused and frightened by the sudden tension. Moira knelt, cupping his face gently. "It's all right, sweetheart. We will get through this. Stay by my side." Lachlan reached into his coat and withdrew a sealed piece of paper. "The innkeeper lent me a candle and wax. The seal is unbroken. Whatever is written inside remains private." Moira stared at the folded letter as though it were something alive. She didn't reach for it. Lachlan stepped closer. "You need not read it alone." She exhaled shakily and took it from him. The seal bore no crest, only the pressed imprint of a thumb, a common seal for a message meant to hide its origin. She slid her thumb beneath the fold and opened it. Lachlan moved to stand beside her, not close enough to intrude, but close enough to steady her if she faltered. Moira unfolded the small, rough-edged page. Handwriting she did not recognize sprawled across it, uneven and hurried. She began to read. "Mistress Campbell, forgive the boldness of a stranger writing to you. I fear time runs short and you do not know the danger approaching. The man who seeks you now is not Fergus Grant. He has gone. Another follows, a man tied to the scandal years ago. A man who knows secrets that may destroy you if he speaks. Protect your child. Do not leave the inn until help arrives. Trust no one but the Duke." Moira's breath vanished. Her knees weakened, and she reached blindly for the nearest surface. Lachlan steadied her before she could fall. "What does it say?" he asked softly. She handed him the letter with shaking hands. He scanned it quickly, his face sharpening with every line. When he finished, he folded it and exhaled slowly. "This changes things." Moira forced words through her tightening throat. "Another man, from the scandal. Who? I don't understand. Who else knows?" Lachlan's voice softened, though tension simmered beneath it. "Whoever sent this believes someone from your past, someone more dangerous than Fergus, is closing in. Someone who might know more of your secrets than even Ian revealed." Moira felt her pulse pound at her temples. The room dimmed around her. Ewan tugged her sleeve. "Mother, why are you frightened?" Moira knelt and hugged him tightly, unable to speak for a moment. Lachlan crouched beside them. "Ewan, your mother is safe. I promise you. She is only tired from our long journey." "Journey?" the boy echoed, puzzled. Lachlan offered him a gentle smile. "A journey toward peace." Moira swallowed hard. "Who would send such a letter? Who would know enough to warn me?" Lachlan handed the page back to her. "The handwriting is not distinctive, but the message is specific. Whoever wrote it knows much about your past." Moira rubbed her trembling hands together. "I cannot face another man from those years. I cannot bear it." "Tell me, Lachlan, am I cursed to carry this forever?" He stood and helped her to her feet. "You are not cursed. You are hunted by memories others refuse to let die. There is a difference." She blinked up at him, unsettled by the quiet strength in his eyes. He continued, "We must determine who benefits from frightening you. It might be someone seeking to manipulate you, or someone genuinely trying to protect you." Moira shook her head helplessly. "But why now? Why after so many years?" "Perhaps your return to Scotland stirred something," Lachlan said. "Old secrets rise when their keepers grow careless." She pressed her forehead to her palm. "I made myself invisible on purpose. I lived quietly. I harmed no one. Why won't they let me be?" Lachlan touched her arm gently. "Because your truth matters more than you know. People fear truth that threatens them." She let out a trembling breath. "What if the one coming is not someone who wishes to hurt me? What if he seeks something else? Something I cannot give?" Lachlan met her gaze. "Then we will face him together." Moira stared at him. "You speak as if this is your burden too." "It is now," he said simply. Emotion rose in her chest too quickly, too fiercely. She steadied herself on the table and looked away. There was a knock on the door again. Soft, cautious. Lachlan stiffened instantly. "Stay behind me," but it was only Ian's voice. "Mistress Campbell? Your Grace? May I enter?" Lachlan opened the door a crack. "Yes," briefly. Ian slipped inside, nervous and out of breath. "Forgive me. I saw the rider's silhouette again near the stables. He didn't speak, didn't approach, just watched. Then he vanished into the tree line." Moira pressed her hand to her heart. Why would he not show himself? Ian hesitated. Perhaps he fears being recognized. Or he fears the man approaching more than he fears being seen, Moira whispered. "The letter told me to trust no one but the Duke." Ian paled. "Then I should go." Lachlan shook his head. "For now you are safe here. But tell me, Fergus is truly gone?" "Yes, Your Grace. I escorted him down the North Road. He plans to ride straight to Inverness to find lodging and rest. He has no intention of returning." Moira let out a small, shaky exhale. Ian added softly, "He did not curse you, mistress. He did not blame you. He only mourned what might have been." Moira closed her eyes. The grief was old, but it still ached when touched. Lachlan said, "Ian, did Fergus mention any name? Any hint of the man who might be following?" Ian shook his head. Only that he had heard whispers of someone else seeking her before he himself received the maid's confession, but he did not know who. Moira sank into the chair again, dizzy from fear. "I cannot remain in this room forever." "You won't," Lachlan said. "Only until I learn more, and until I know how to lead you to safety." Ian stepped back. I saw him only briefly, but the rider's coat was dark grey. The horse was black. That's all I know. A shadow washed over Moira's face. She whispered, "That sounds like someone I once knew. Someone my father trusted. The steward who left right after everything happened." Ian's eyes widened. "Duncan Kincaid?" Moira nodded, her throat tightening. "Yes. He was loyal to my father, loyal to the household. But he was also the one who knew every secret, every whispered rumor, every hidden thing." Lachlan's posture sharpened. "Did he know the truth about Ewan?" Moira felt the world sway. "Yes, he knew more than anyone. More than I wished he did." Lachlan spoke with new firmness. "Then he may have come to expose the past or to protect you from it." Ian moved toward the door. "I will keep watch near the stairs, Your Grace. If the rider returns, I will call for you." Lachlan nodded. "Go." When Ian left, Lachlan turned to Moira again. "You must tell me what Duncan Kincaid knows, every detail." Moira wrapped her arms around herself. "Duncan was in the house the night everything fell apart. He heard the argument between my father and Fergus. He saw the aftermath, and he knew where I fled. He knows about the man who betrayed me afterward, and he knows Ewan's true origins." Lachlan's expression darkened. "Then he holds the power to destroy your future." Moira flinched. "Exactly." Ewan climbed onto her lap, seeking warmth. Moira held him tightly. She spoke with trembling breath. "I cannot let this man come near us. If he speaks, the shame will return, the whispers will spread, and Ewan—" Lachlan knelt and took her hand, a gentle, grounding touch. "Moira, Ewan's identity is not a shame. You did nothing wrong. Nothing." She blinked back tears. "The world does not see it that way. Then the world will learn otherwise." She stared at him, breath unsteady. He squeezed her hand. "You are under my protection now, and I do not yield to shadows." Her heart thudded painfully. Another knock came at the door, but this time it was firm, urgent, deliberate. Lachlan rose instantly, shielding Moira and Ewan with his body. "Who is it?" he demanded. Ian's voice trembled through the wood. "Your Grace, you must come at once. Duncan Kincaid is here. He's inside the inn." Moira gasped, blood freezing, and Ian added, "He's asking for Moira by name." Moira did not move at first. Her breath stuck in her throat, and for a moment she could hear nothing but the rushing pulse in her ears. Duncan Kincaid, a name she had avoided for years. A man who had stood in too many doorways of her childhood home, quiet and expressionless, watching everything and saying nothing. A man who knew too much. Lachlan stepped closer and laid a steadying hand on her back. He spoke softly, his tone warm and protective. "Moira, breathe. He is only a man, nothing more, and he will not touch you. Not while I am here. She nodded, but her nerves still shuddered beneath her skin. Ewan clung to her skirts, confused by the tension but calmed by the familiar scent of her shawl. She bent, whispered soothing words into his hair, and brushed his cheek with a trembling hand. "Everything's all right, my sweet boy. Nothing will happen to us." Lachlan walked to the door and spoke through it, his voice firm. "Ian, keep him in the common room. No one approaches this floor until I permit it." "Yes, Your Grace." His tone carried obedience and fear alike. Lachlan turned back to Moira. "Do you wish me to send him away without listening?" She closed her eyes. I don't know. Duncan never spoke out of turn. He never threatened me. But he heard what no one else heard. He saw what I never meant anyone to see. He knows the truth about Ewan." Lachlan's gaze softened. "And you fear he means to expose it?" Moira swallowed. "My father trusted him more than anyone. If my father changed his mind now, if he asked Duncan to bring me back by force of truth alone, then Duncan would do it. Not by violence, no, but by words. Words can wound a woman more deeply than steel." Lachlan stepped closer. His expression was neither pity nor alarm, only steady strength. "Then you will not see him. I will speak to him instead." Moira hesitated. "What will you say?" "Enough to end his purpose here," he replied. "Enough to free you from this fear. You deserve peace, Moira. And your son deserves a mother unburdened." Tears rose but did not fall. Lachlan reached gently for her hand. His touch was warm, patient, and respectful, like a promise formed in silence. "Trust me once more," he said. "Let me speak for you." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, please." Lachlan released her hand and motioned for her to sit with Ewan near the fire. "Stay here. Do not open the door until you hear my voice again." She watched him leave, his strides long and calm, as though nothing in the world could unsettle him. The door closed softly behind him. Moira held Ewan close and listened. Voices murmured below, too low to distinguish, but the tone shifted often, first tense, then questioning, then steady again. Minutes passed. Long minutes. Ewan drifted to sleep against her arm, his small breaths warm against her shoulder. She kissed his hair, marveling at how peaceful he looked despite the storm swirling around them. She promised herself she would fight for him always. No past would claim him. No man would steal his safety. After what felt like an hour, footsteps echoed on the stairs. Moira's heart leapt, but she didn't move until she heard Lachlan's familiar knock. "Moira." "It's safe." She rose quickly and opened the door. Lachlan stepped inside. His expression held relief, not alarm. "It is done." She exhaled shakily, covering her mouth with her hand. What happened? He closed the door behind him and leaned against it gently, gathering his words. Duncan came with questions, not accusations. He was sent by no one. His presence here was his own doing. Moira frowned. "I don't understand." Lachlan moved closer. "Duncan left your father's service months ago. He learned the truth of what happened on his own. He felt guilty, helpless. He followed rumors until he found this road. He only wanted to warn you before others spoke first." Moira blinked. "Warn me." "Yes," Lachlan said. "He knew Fergus was searching. He feared you would believe Fergus wished to reclaim a past best left behind. Duncan admits he should have spoken years ago. He is not here to ruin you, Moira. He came to prevent any further harm." Moira sat slowly on the edge of the bed, her shoulders trembling. Everything felt too bright and too heavy at once. "Did he mention Ewan?" Lachlan shook his head. "He said only that your child deserved peace, and that he would keep your secret until death." Her breath left her in a soft rush. "And he's gone?" "Yes. I made it clear no one will trouble you again. He understood." Moira whispered. "He understood." Lachlan sat beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. The fire cast soft gold across his features. He looked both strong and gentle, as if built for shelter rather than command. "You are safe, Moira," he repeated. "Truly safe." She nodded, her throat tightening with emotion she could no longer contain. The fear, the memories, the shame, everything she had carried for years, felt suddenly lighter, as though set down at last. Lachlan watched her carefully. "You endured more than any woman should, and you did it alone." Moira met his gaze. And now you are not alone, he said quietly. Her chest warmed painfully, beautifully. She held Ewan closer as silent tears slipped down her cheeks. Lachlan reached for her hand once more, and this time she let him hold it without hesitation. "Tell me," he said softly, "do you still fear the truth of your past being known?" Moira wiped a tear and shook her head. "Not anymore. Not as long as my son is protected. The rest feels less frightening than before." Lachlan exhaled, relief softening his features. "Good. That is what I wanted for you." She studied him for a moment. "Why have you done so much? You owe me nothing. We met only by chance." Lachlan shook his head once. "I do not believe in chance. We crossed paths because something in you called to something in me. Quiet as a breath, strong as a vow. You deserve more than fear. And I wish to be part of your peace, if you will allow it." Moira felt her heart stir like a bird lifting its wings for the first time. She hesitated, overwhelmed by tenderness she had not expected to feel again. Lachlan continued, "I will not press you. You have endured enough pressure to last a lifetime. But know this, Moira Campbell, I do not fear your past. I do not judge it. And nothing you reveal could turn me from you." Her breath trembled. She squeezed his hand lightly. "You have been kinder than I imagined anyone could be." "Not kindness," he murmured. "Truth. You deserve a life without shadows." Moira lowered her gaze to Ewan, who still slept peacefully. Outside she could hear the murmur of the inn, light and unburdened now that danger had passed. She spoke softly. "What happens now?" Lachlan smiled faintly. "Whatever you choose. There is no threat left on this road, no pursuers, no ghosts, but the ones you permit to follow. You may continue your journey north, or remain here another night, or," she lifted her head, "or what? Or come with me to Strathmore," he said gently, "as guests, as friends, as whatever you wish. No expectation, no burden. Only safety and freedom." Moira's breath caught. The offer was more than hospitality. It was hope. "I've never known such a place," she whispered. "Then let me show you one." The room fell quiet, not heavy this time, but warm, soft, filled with the promise of something new. Moira straightened and touched Lachlan's hand once more, not out of fear but gratitude. "Thank you," she said simply. He bowed his head. "There is nothing to thank me for. Protecting you has been natural." She smiled through her tears. Outside, footsteps approached softly. Moira tensed, but Lachlan didn't rise. It was only the innkeeper checking that the floor was quiet. The danger was gone. The night was safe. Moira glanced at the letter again, the warning written in a stranger's hand. It lay folded on the table beside the fire, already fading into irrelevance. The world that once chased her had loosened its grip. Her voice softened. "Lachlan, what do we tell Ewan?" "Whatever truth you wish," he replied, "and when the time comes I will stand beside you while you tell it." Moira brushed a hand along Ewan's hair. He shifted slightly, then settled back into sleep. Lachlan watched her with a tenderness that no title or duty could explain. "Rest, Moira," he said. "You need strength for what comes next." She felt no fear in those words, only promise. She looked at him with new steadiness, new trust, and for the first time in years, she felt the future open before her, not as a threat but as a possibility. Lachlan rose slowly. "I will be just outside. Call if you need me." She nodded. He touched her hand once more, then stepped out, leaving her with the warm fire, her sleeping son, and a calm she had not known in years. Moira drew a deep breath. The past had been faced. The danger had passed, and her heart, long guarded, began to open at last. The morning after the long night felt strangely bright. Snow melted on the window panes, sliding down in thin rivulets as if the world itself were exhaling. Moira woke with Ewan curled against her, his small hand resting on her arm. For a moment, she simply watched him breathe, feeling the stillness settle softly around them. A knock sounded, gentle, familiar. Lachlan's voice followed, low and warm. "Moira, are you awake?" She rose carefully and opened the door. Lachlan stood in the corridor, hair slightly mussed from the night, the cold air brushing at the edges of his coat. The sight of him steadied her. More than that, it warmed something inside her that she had kept buried for far too long. "Good morning," she said, voice not quite steady. "Good morning." His eyes softened. "How are you?" "Better," she answered honestly. He nodded. "Good. I hoped you might take a walk with me." "Only for a moment. The inn is calm now, and as there are things I wish to say where walls won't listen." Moira hesitated, not from fear, those days had passed, but from the sudden flutter that rose in her chest. She looked at Ewan, still sleeping. "I'll come when he wakes." Lachlan's voice gentled. "Let me stay with him while you dress. He will not wake alone." She smiled. "Thank you." She dressed quickly, brushing her hair and tying her shawl securely, before stepping back into the room where Lachlan stood, watching over Ewan as if he were something precious. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." They stepped through the quiet inn and out into the fresh snow. The morning sky hovered pale and soft above the hills. The air was crisp, but not biting. A rare peace lay over the landscape, as though even the Highlands knew this was no ordinary day. They walked side by side. For a moment neither spoke. Finally Lachlan said, "Last night, after Duncan left, I sat below and thought about everything you endured, and everything you fear still, and I realized something I should have seen from the beginning." Moira looked at him. "What is that? That you have carried your life alone for far too long. And I meant what I said. You are not alone anymore." Her breath caught. Lachlan continued, "I know I have no claim on your heart. And I know the world has not always been kind with its promises. But Moira," he paused, choosing each word with care, "since the moment you asked to sit at my table, something in me has awakened. Something I believed died long ago." She felt her pulse quicken. "Lachlan," he shook his head gently. "Let me say it, please. Just once, without interruption." She nodded, heart pounding. He took a slow breath. "After my wife passed, I closed myself to the world. I thought it was loyalty to her memory. In truth, it was fear. Fear of feeling again, fear of failing again. I told myself I would never let someone close enough to wound me. But you," he glanced at her, voice softening, "you never tried to enter my heart. You simply lived with such quiet strength that I found myself walking toward you without even noticing." Moira felt warmth rush to her cheeks. Lachlan stopped walking. She stopped with him. "I want a life no longer shaped by grief. And I want a life filled with purpose, companionship, and a future I can believe in. When I look at you, Moira, I see the possibility of that life. Not because of what you endured, but because of who you are." Moira lowered her gaze, overwhelmed. Lachlan reached gently for her hand, not possessive, not demanding, simply waiting until she chose to give it. When she did, he held it carefully, as if it were something fragile, yet beloved. Moira said, "You speak as though I am someone worthy of such devotion." "You are," he replied without hesitation, "more than you know." A tear slipped down her cheek, but this time it carried no sorrow, only release. Lachlan stepped closer. "But I will never rush you. You have lived with too many demands, too many expectations forced upon your shoulders. I offer nothing but this. My heart is open to you, and I wish to share whatever life you choose to build." Moira felt her breath tremble. She whispered, "I don't know how to deserve something so gentle." He smiled faintly. "You don't need to deserve it. You only need to want it." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Lachlan's eyes remained fixed on hers, calm and unwavering. Moira lifted her other hand and rested it lightly against his chest. She felt the steady beat beneath her palm, warm and certain. Lachlan covered her hand with his. "You said you wanted my truth," she murmured. "Always. And you promised you would not turn from it. Never." Her voice wavered. "Then listen. I carried shame for years, over a mistake, over a secret, over a man who broke me and left me with a child I loved more than life itself. Shame because the world told me I should bow my head and hide. But when you spoke to me yesterday, you made me believe I was not ruined. You made me believe I had worth." Lachlan's grip on her hand tightened, gentle but firm. Moira continued, "And I do not know how to bury the past entirely. But I know this." She looked into his eyes, steady at last. "When you walked into my fear, you gave me back something I thought I lost forever." "What is that?" he asked softly. Hope. Lachlan closed his eyes briefly, overcome. When he opened them, there was no doubt left in their depths. Moira Campbell, he said quietly, I care for you more deeply than I have words to express. But tell me what you feel, only if you wish. She stepped even closer, her hands rising slightly, her gaze trembling only with affection now. Lachlan, these last days have shown me more kindness than I have known in years, and I have grown to trust you, to respect you, she swallowed, to feel more than I ever expected to feel again. He smiled, slow and warm, as though the world itself softened at her confession. Then there is only one question left, he said. What do you wish for your future? She met his gaze steadily. I wish for peace, for safety, for a place where I can raise Ewan without fear. And she hesitated, heart fluttering. And I wish for someone to stand beside me, someone who sees me, someone who chooses me. Lachlan lifted her hand to his chest again. Then hear me. I choose you, not out of pity, not out of duty, but out of genuine, unclouded affection. You and your son both. Moira felt tears gather again. And if I choose you, then I will build a life with you at Strathmore. I will give Ewan a place to grow shielded from gossip, and I will treat you with the devotion you deserve every day of my life. Moira let out a trembling laugh. You speak as though this were simple. Love is simple, Lachlan murmured. It is the world that complicates it. Her breath caught. Love? You? Love me? He brushed a stray curl from her cheek. I do, quietly, fiercely, entirely. Moira stared at him, heart thudding with joy, disbelief, and something brighter than either. Then she lifted her hand to his jaw, fingers trembling. Lachlan's breath hitched, but he remained still, letting her choose every step. She whispered, Then I choose you too. It was all he needed. His hands came to her waist, not pulling, not claiming, only holding her as though she were the first warm thing he'd touched in years. Moira stepped closer, until his breath mingled with hers. Their foreheads touched softly. Moira whispered, I want the life you spoke of. For me. For Ewan. If you are certain. I have never been more certain of anything, he murmured. Moira smiled through tears. Then kiss me, Lachlan Fraser. He did. The kiss was slow, warm, reverent, like a vow whispered in a quiet church. His hands held her gently, his touch full of tenderness, not urgency. Moira's fingers curled in his coat, her heart lifting in a way she had never known. The world around them disappeared. There was only warmth, only breath, only the two of them standing in the morning snow, letting the old pain melt beneath the weight of something new and gentle. When they parted, Lachlan rested his forehead against hers again. Moira, my heart is yours. And mine is yours, she whispered. They stood like that, two lives joining in the simplest, most profound promise. No fear remained, no shadows lingered. Only possibility. A small voice called from the inn door. Mother! Moira turned, laughing softly as Ewan ran toward them in the snow. She dropped to her knees and caught him, holding him tight. Ewan blinked at her flushed cheeks. Why are you crying? I'm happy, my love, she whispered. Happier than I have been in years. Lachlan crouched beside them, smiling softly. Ewan looked up at him with bright, curious eyes. Are we leaving? The boy asked. If you wish, Lachlan said. Your mother and I have much to speak of, but no matter what comes, I promise you will be safe. Ewan glanced between them, then leaned against Moira's shoulder. I like him, he announced plainly. He makes you smile. Moira laughed through a new wave of tears. Yes, sweetheart. He does. Lachlan's voice softened. Does that mean you will come to Strathmore with me? Both of you? Moira looked at Ewan, then at Lachlan. Then she spoke clearly, steadily, filled with hope. Yes, we will come. Lachlan exhaled a breath he had held for days. His smile grew, warm, full, unguarded. He reached for Moira's hand again, and she gave it willingly. Together, with Ewan between them, they walked back toward the inn as the sun climbed higher, casting gold across the snow-covered road. Their pasts no longer chased them, their futures no longer frightened them, and the path ahead, shared between a duke, a woman who had suffered too long, and a child who deserved a world without fear, opened wide and bright, waiting to be lived. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories, full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.